Dark-skinned shorty at a startup with them white folks. Thought it was a drought, now they gave the show to Michael. No, we moved the word count, no, we got the God flow. This ain't what you heard about, this that good convo. Good convo, good convo, good convo. This that good convo.
Man, in case y'all didn't notice, yo, like we told Matt at sound check that we was all finna get fitted up because April came on camera, like you see, face beat, hair laid, tour ready. You see that?
Ooh, because all my clothes are gathering dust since, you know, we're
quarantine fit.
Quarantine fit.
So
I had to bring my Ralph out, you know, the little
gotta bring the Ralph out.
I feel 37 years old right now, you feel me? You know what I'm saying?
Vintage.
I gotta bring this out.
I am upset.
I'm upset. All right, so in case y'all know what y'all looking at right now, my name is Michael Penn II, a.k.a. Crash Prez, a.k.a. the rapper with a podcast. I'm not the only rapper with a podcast, but you know, I do this podcast shit. And we are currently on Lost Sounds Radio. Matt, put your headphones on.
He's not doing a good job right now.
You gotta put the headphones on.
I can hear myself. It's like throwing me off. There's a crazy delay.
Okay.
I hear that. We see it.
I don't know.
We decent now?
All right, I'll just have it happen.
Fucking up a nigga intro and all kind of shit. So yeah, no, we here. Lost Sounds Radio, Good Convo number 11. Number 11. It's number 11. And I have two people that I adore. My dogs. Maryland's on, Virginia's on, April and Vista's in the building, in their buildings, respective buildings. VMP Crowdcast.
Home buildings.
Shit, Matt had to get a jacket. That's a good jacket, though. I'm not even gonna hold you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. It's Glitch.
The Glitch.
Matt, you keep coming in and out.
Yeah, I know. I'm just gonna like listen from here.
Oh, okay.
Oh nah. Hey yo, Maya's in the chat, yo. You see that?
Woo! What's up,
Maya?
Shout out Maya. What's good, Maya?
Hey, hi to my sister, yo.
In the building. Let me see the chat light up. What's popping with the chat? It's like 27 people in here. We good. So, first question is via y'all Twitter. You know, y'all, this is y'all text copy. This is y'all press copy. It's like, what is A&V doing during the apocalypse?
Ooh.
April, what are you doing?
Man, well, just trying to stay positive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, mostly just writing a lot. We honestly couldn't. We were on the way to finishing recording things and then had to cease production on that because, you know, social distancing, can't have a whole lot of people in the studio. So now we're just, you know, writing as much as we can and trying to stay creative and put together, you know, little songs here and there.
Yeah, we've been making a lot of like sketches, drafts, sending ideas back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
and playing a lot of Super Mario Odyssey.
This delay is killing me, fool.
Yeah. Can you turn it down on your end?
No, it's cool. I just turned myself down and I'm gonna like put them half on. I can still hear you.
Okay.
All right, bet. So yeah, continue your answer, Matt.
Where did I leave off?
You said sketches and Super Mario.
Odyssey. Yeah, that the first 2 weeks I wasn't doing anything but watching CNN, and that was, you know, totally like keeping me down, but for a while. But after I got over that and started to get used to this whole new normal, whatever, I, you know, started working on music again, and you know, found my like creative pocket in this crazy time.
Mm-hmm. Fire. So on the topic of that new shit, right? In your prior releases, and most specifically in You Are Here, like the last run, y'all were self-describing y'all genre as stress wave. So as the new music is shifted in the course of creating this new shit, what new genre name would y'all give this new body of work?
I don't Oh, me? I mean, I feel like we're off trying to name it, to be honest. Last time that was just like a fun thing to do because we really never could come up with a concise answer when people asked us. But now it's kind of like, I want to free ourselves from even thinking about putting a name on it. Like, I don't understand why we have to. So
you're playing with the idea of drama fantasy.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. Just movie categories from now on.
Movie genres.
What would the Netflix algorithm put y'all under?
Oh man, I don't know. I'm so sick of algorithms.
Facts.
Cerebral crime thriller.
Cerebral, cerebral is like
strong female lead.
You're black, but you can think.
Strong female lead.
No cap. Yeah. Yo, they got like strong black lead. You get strong black lead.
Strong black lead. There you go.
Cerebral is like black, but like different. Fuck out of here.
Yeah. It honestly kind of like, I wish that we didn't have to choose a category, to be honest, because I feel like once you tell people what it is, then they start looking and listening for what it is. So if I say, like, that's why I kind of like, I don't want to be like, I don't like it, but I would prefer that, folks not ask what artist do you think you sound like or anything like that, because that starts to put people once they find out that's what you identify with, then they start to listen for that, and I don't want any of that. It's kind of like we just want to be ourselves, and then you kind of don't have a preconceived notion when you come in.
And to that point, what does it mean to embrace genreless fluidity in the context of your art, especially when... So do you make certain decisions to evade how racialized and gendered the classifications are around black artists in general? Is there anything deliberate that y'all do?
Exist.
Yeah, you're right, exactly.
I mean, that's another thing that kind of like it frustrates me a lot, because I notice like you're kind of given this ceiling and this kind of like this area that you're allowed to occupy, right? As a black musician. And I just kind of wish that we were to just be allowed to exist as we are without anyone trying to corner us into a specific, into what they want us to be. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
I've noticed that, like, with a lot of non-black artists, like, if they say, I make, pop disco, people allow them to be that, and there's no questions asked, you're just allowed. And then with us, it's kind of like, well, I see two black people, so y'all must make, neo soul.
Right.
And it's like without even considering, that maybe there's a wide range here. If you listen to the music, there's so many different ways it could be classified. So I kind of like want to just exist, and without having to deliberately do anything, even though that's kind of like, maybe it's like, that's like naive to say, because like as a black person, you can't just do that. You have to kind of, you know what I mean? Like you kind of have to make some type of statement to who you are, and like people like expect that, and I kind of wish I didn't have to do that. I don't know if that makes sense.
Shit, it makes sense to me. Shit. Matt, how you feel about it?
I agree. I'm sorry,
I mean, he's having sound issues.
Yeah, I'm just having sound issues right now. I'm trying to like troubleshoot it on my side.
Trust issues. Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it. We have found that like just the infrastructure for music in general has to catch up with the ethos that we're moving towards, and I feel like, right now when you upload music, like you're prompted to choose a genre, and you have to. It's kind of like you have to kind of pick something. And I kind of wish that you didn't, or you were able to just name it what you want and then not have to like, You know, like right now, like algorithms are created a certain way that you have to fit into a slot in order to be placed somewhere in front of the people that may like your music. Mm-hmm. And I wish that wasn't the case, because, you know, you kind of miss the whole story once you try to squeeze it somewhere where it may not fit entirely.
Right.
I don't know if that answers the question.
I think it's another very particular pressure because, like, even just to market and commodify music, anybody with a plan has to kind of go somewhere. But the sort of ways that other types of people experience that, it's not like if a white guy's like, I'm going to make an indie rock record, they're not going to be bound to that shit forever. But it's a black person making a deliberate plan to try to market themselves. It's like, oh shit, the first thing that pops from you is like what people are going to know you for. Like, stuck.
Right.
Matt, are you okay, bro?
Oh, wait a second. I think I got it. Can y'all hear me?
Yay. Yeah,
we
can
got
hear
it.
you.
We got it.
Wow.
George, you got it.
What happened?
I had another window up, so I think it was like
windows up.
Streaming twice.
Wow, that's crazy.
Oh, that's probably why.
Right, I was mad. All right, cool. What was the question?
Genre fluidity in the context of black artists being very, very boxed into race and gender, class, etc., etc. What's it like? What choices do you make to evade that, if any at all?
Yeah, I feel like you tried, like, or at least we try not to like interact with that, but I feel it's almost like impossible to escape. You know, even when you try to make decisions without considering like. You know, being a black artist and doing something that's genre fluid, you're always conscious of where you stand and your place in, you know, in the industry, you know what I mean? So whenever we're making something that's like kind of like R&B leaning, we go through like a sequence of thoughts. We're like, yeah, this is fire, but this is R&B, but so what?
Right.
You're like more conscious of what you're making because you know that you can't control the public perception. And so it's like, if I make this R&B song, even though I love it and that's what I want to do, I don't want to be pegged as that for the rest of my career. I want to be able to do everything.
Right. So we're like in the middle of, we're still like, navigating that just as pretty much any like black artist that's making, you know, more than like a traditional genre or, you know, an expected genre. But, you know, at this point, or at least like with the next thing that we've been working on, we've been trying to like focus on just solely doing what we want and blocking everything out.
Yeah.
Fire.
And that's been feeling really good because you kind of freely create without stressing out about what sounds too traditional, what sounds this way. We do kind of check ourselves, though. Like, if we make something and we think we could push the envelope more, then we'll do it. But as far as, like, I feel like when we were writing You Are Here, like, we were very conscious of, like, okay, so we need to have a strong single. We need to do this. And even when we categorize it as R&B soul, we were like, okay, so we need to do this because that's going to allow us to reach all the different people that would probably like our music, since it's like really our first like real effort at putting together a body of work. But now we're just kind of like, oh, I'm over it.
We were also trying to like really prove a lot to people with that project too, and I think we're kind of off that.
Yeah, we're totally off it now.
Is what I'm telling myself right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we did that shit. Like, y'all are overseas with it now. Like, certain things you just don't gotta prove. And we're gonna get to that in a minute too. So let's backtrack. Yeah, look, I've been waiting. I'm like the Joe Budden meme, nigga. Like, I've been waiting.
There's only 2 people listening to this conversation. Y'all about to get it.
All 34 niggas gonna get this work. This, y'all have to understand, like, the 30-something people watching this, y'all gotta understand, like, I really wish this was like in another context, because the way this went in my head was we would meet up in DC somewhere, like, you know, eat something fly, sit down at the table and talk that talk. And now in we've gone COVID crazy, so we in the crib with it. But y'all finna get this work regardless. So let's take it back a bit. So literally, I grew up with Matt. I met him when I was in 10th grade. He was in 11th.
At the bus stop.
At the bus stop. What was it? How did we first interact? Do you know this?
Yeah, we connected because I was trying to convince my friends that MF Doom was tight. And Mike, you were off to the side, and then you overheard me. You're like, "What? You listen to Doom?" And what I realized in life is, whenever you meet a fan of Doom, you guys are like instantly friends.
Literally.
So we connected on our love for Doom, and found out that Mike rapped as well, and I was just starting to get into making beats. So the whole friendship kind of blossomed from there, and it's been like constant ever since then. We've been just watching each other grow and develop. It's been amazing.
It's been crazy. And I met this man, and he's like straight up like Dilla head, Doom head, like had the MPC and shit. Like,
all I listened to at that time was Doom
and Go-Go. Go-Go Matt exclusive. Yeah, the Go-Go MySpace back when that was a thing. Y'all don't even understand, G. Like,
Go-Go MySpace. I would go from Go-Go Central, download stuff from the VIP section, upload it to Go-Go, upload it to my Go-Go Twitter, then call myself Go-Go Matt. It was amazing. Matt with one T at that.
Well, I didn't even know it was one T.
It was one T. I found like a bunch of.
Your own name.
I burned a bunch of CDs and I realized I was only putting one T on Matt. Like it was some sort of like alias. No one would know.
So it's stuck.
So
the rest is history.
So what you mean, Matt? Like Matt? No, that Matt got two T's. This nigga got one T.
They see my name, then I erase the T, and they're like,
you know, bullshit. Exactly. So yeah, let's just talk about. I'm gonna do this for both of y'all, but Matt, let's talk about the road to April and Vista and giving your all to this project, because I've known you as a producer. You produce for a lot of like someone who works for Sir EU, DC Legend, in case y'all know Sir EU, a lot of folks in that scene. Yeah, like let's just talk about your early creative life before you ended up at April and Vista, and April will do the same for you.
Yeah, so I started making beats around 11th grade. Yeah, I downloaded a FL Studio 7 at the time.
7 was the shit.
Bro, the worst stock sounds known to man, but it got the job done. Mm-hmm. Anyway, yes, I started making beats then. When around the same time I met a good friend of mine, EU. We made a project in high school called The Whole Enchilada.
The Whole Enchilada.
The Whole Enchilada. And back then I had I had like a producer tag. I went, ooh yeah. So that's where I started. And ever since that project, I never really stopped. I went off to college. April and I both went to Hampton at different times, kind of. And I put out a couple of beat tapes in college and kind of like used a lot of that time to like practice and like, you know, get my skills together, I suppose. Around like junior year, I switched over to Ableton and I didn't know how to sample at all in Ableton. So it totally, I totally had to like kind of switch my style because I was a primarily sampling producer. And that got me into like learning instruments like, you know, piano and just understanding like theory in a sense. And I started working with some of the singers at Hampton, and I realized that I really enjoy working in that space, working with singers and building projects that, you know, in that area. So after school, I graduated 2014. I'm applying to jobs. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And about 2 weeks after our graduation, April hit me on SoundCloud because she found my beats on my page, and we still have the interaction, like screenshotted when we thought SoundCloud was going to explode.
Wow.
Yep.
And yeah, she said, you know, she liked my beats because she connected with me through a mutual, and then we met up at Bus Boys and Poets, 14th and V, and that's when we began. We just you know, everything kind of clicked immediately, and that was summer 2014, and we instantly started working on our first EP, which was Lanterns.
God damn it! Do you see my stand jumping out? No, let me not. Okay, so that is your side of the Lantern story. I need April's side. April, you're from Virginia originally, right?
Yes, I'm from Virginia Beach.
You're from Virginia Beach. Gee,
Born
I used to go to
and
Virginia
raised.
Beach.
Well, not born
every
and raised.
summer.
I was born in Portsmouth. Yeah.
Hell yeah. So you have a multi-instrumentalist background as well, yeah? You had classical training or?
Well, both classical and by ear. So when I was really young, I learned like a child. I learned piano by ear, and then my aunt used to play violin. So I got a hand-me-down violin because they're very expensive. And in 4th grade, that's when I started taking private lessons from my music teacher in elementary school because we couldn't afford the real lessons. Mm-hmm. And after a year of that, Virginia Beach has a really good string program, so I would just take string classes all the way. I did that all the way up until my senior year of high school. And I would play competitively, and it was all classical music. And then when I hit college, I played in the college orchestra, but I tried to focus more on, my books. I didn't really want to have a music career, or I didn't study music. I studied business. So I kind of I didn't put it down because I've always played an instrument, but I didn't do anything to go towards a career until after I graduated and got a desk job and realized that it was trash. And I hated it so bad. And I was like, oh, there has to be more. I need to figure out, a way to get out of this rut because, I really do feel like I need to be creative, but in a musical way and not in this way. So one day when I was sitting at my desk, I went back to school to record demos because a friend of mine in college told me that, you should try singing because he's heard me sing a couple of times. Was like, you really should do this. And he kind of pushed me to do it and said, there's this kid on campus, dude, named Matt. He makes really awesome beats, so you should hit him up. So I was sitting at my desk when I went back to work. I was sitting at my desk and I was on SoundCloud, and then I went to his Bandcamp, Matt's Bandcamp, and listened to all his beats. I was like, oh, this is fire. Sent him a message. And I was really nervous, and I sent this cringy paragraph, I just want to work with you. If you don't want to work, it's okay. We can just meet up. And he said, yeah. So after that, we met up in DC, and just like he explained how meeting you, he felt like this is an instant friend. It was the same here. Mm-hmm. So we instantly started talking about putting out a project, and literally that was 2014.
Yeah, that was June 2014. June
2014, and then ever since then we've been working on stuff. So there's way more to my coming of that point, but it's just so boring that those are the highlights.
April's I heard April. I was like, oh, we're starting a childhood. Let me go back.
Yeah, no, for real. I'm like,
no, because he asked me.
I was born
in the hospital.
The best of times, the worst of times.
Well, because he asked me classical, and I was like, well, not really.
Yeah.
Jeez, I don't know. My eyes are fucking watering because I feel like this is connecting pieces that I didn't even know. I'm not even bullshitting y'all right now. No bullshit. I can see the fucking biopic right now.
Oh my god.
Okay, so y'all knew instantly that just the chemistry was real and that this could blossom into something. I literally remember having lanterns in my apartment in senior year and just running that shit up and still run that shit up. I could sing some, but I'm not gonna play with y'all with that.
Sing some.
Oh.
You don't put me on blast on the fucking podcast with me right now.
You off them vocals.
Now I'm blanking and shit. No, you're not gonna happen. If I try to hit the high note, knowing how fucked up my voice is, I'm gonna just look stupid right now.
Blame it on service. Blame it on the Wi-Fi.
Just ooh.
It's dropping out.
He's dropping
Don't
out.
put no pressure on him.
We're gonna go. We'll return to it. I know I'm gonna send y'all shit at some point during this episode. So like, let's take me into the division of labor as far as how y'all create songs. I know y'all use voice notes a lot. Like, how do you get from voice note to full composition?
So it's like it changes a bit. It depends on like where we are. If we're in the same room, then it's it's kind of the dynamics different from when we're in different places. But April's always she's got like 2+ books full of lyrics. So she's always writing, and I'm always like piecing together like beats and melodies and stuff. What I usually do is I send April a video of like just straight down of my desk with a beat playing in the background.
Hey yo,
and like, yo, listen to this. And I'm probably sure it probably sounds really crappy on the other side, but just to get an idea out to April, and then she'll have something to put on top of it, and then we'll just continue to like I'll continue like to send her different versions until she comes to my house, and then we're kind of like building it together at that point.
Yeah, and sometimes we alternate, like if we're in the same room and Matt wants to put something down and go to something else, like I'll go somewhere else in the house and try to write while he works on another beat. Sometimes it comes from sketches, sometimes it comes from raw recordings of me singing into my phone quietly at 4 a.m. sometimes, and like I'll send that to him, and he'll take that and put it in Ableton and like create a beat around that. Very recently, we've started composing for other instrumentalists, which has been a dream of mine. I'm kind of bummed about this virus because this will be the first time that or a string ensemble was going to play full compositions that I've written and Matt's written. So it's, that's one of the things that we've evolved and learned to do that I'm like the most excited about right now, because I'm like, oh man, like we finally get to, like sometimes you feel kind of weird when you're working with instrumentalists and you wanting to play on a song but you don't have written music out, so you just tell them, here's the key, do you. And now like it helps to kind of like exercise that muscle and try to learn composition so we can call ourselves composers and move into that space. We really want to start scoring stuff, because after this last project, after writing this, I was like, man, we should be doing this. Like, there's nothing we can't do at this point.
Yeah, we're trying to like expand a little bit, with every project. So it's like it's always like a big it's always a learning curve after we put out the last project, because we're thinking, how are we going to go further? And what does further mean? So between Note to Self and You Are Here, we definitely did a lot of like studying and figuring out theory and things like that. Between that time, I learned the bass, because it's figuring out how to make it bigger than Note to Self. Right. So the same thing between You Are Here and what we're working on right now. Trying to figure out, what does different look like for us.
Okay, so speaking of expanding, y'all have never dropped anything longer than 20 minutes, okay? And it's not a drag. It's not a drag. I'm just like, you've given us crumbs for years, bro.
Every time we talk, you bring this up.
Oh, yes, and I got to put it on record. You hear me?
We are trying our best. Honestly, that was a conscious decision. Like, the first 2 projects were us trying to figure out, our sound and how we work together and what works well, what doesn't. And with You Are Here, we intentionally made short songs because at the time, it's so funny because it's now like, it feels so far in the past. But at the time, like the general ethos in the industry is like, you can't make short songs, like you need to make full projects, blah, blah, blah. So we were like, man, forget that. Like, I'm going to do whatever I want. Let's make short songs. Why not? who cares? Like the length of this song doesn't matter so much as the content of the song. So will we make longer songs in the future? Yeah, sure. Why not? So it's all like an exercise, really.
For sure. Yeah. So I was going to ask, what makes y'all give the people? What makes you give the people less and take y'all time with it, knowing how oversaturated the game is? Because y'all will take y'all time as far as going a year or two in between drops.
Yeah.
What makes y'all?
That might not be the most intentional.
No?
I mean, we spend a lot of time, like, we grow a lot in between, the EPs that we put out. And, like, we really, like, approach the process like it's a full length. Because, we try to, go far left from what we did before. And, I don't know. We're really particular with our process and the songs that we choose, and like once it feels right, then we stop.
Mm-hmm.
So for the last 3 projects, maxed out at 8 at You Are Here, because I feel like the story was told to its fullest extent at these songs, and afterwards once we got to the 8 songs, we kind of felt like, if we make more, we're just making more to fill it.
Exactly. And then it feels disingenuous, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if the story, that we're trying to tell, like, requires, more words, we'll add more words.
Right.
But, you never know. I feel like it's also, there's so many different elements as well. April and I both work, full-time jobs, or we're navigating so many different things outside of music, and balancing this life with that life.
It is tough.
No, I know it well. I know it well.
It is tough.
And with all the stuff that we try to pack into our music, it does get a little bit exhausting sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
So, I think there are a bunch of different, like, elements that, lend to our short projects. Yeah. But I'm not mad at it. Who knows how long the next thing will be.
Like, honestly, like, and to, further expand on that, like you said, like, we literally have to work full-time jobs at the same time. So it's kind of like your time gets cut in half or more at that point, because now you have 8 to 10 hours of your day eaten up by something that, has nothing to do with music. And then the rest of that time you have to work on your stuff. So that's why I laughed. I was like, it's not intentional. Like, I wish that we could, just throw that all away. And I really feel like if we had, like, could devote, like, our full attention and time to something, we might be able to crank out things a little bit faster. But that definitely does add to your production time.
No, I hear it.
I remember once we were at a recording session, story time, and we were, like, in another country, and I don't bring my work laptop with me for stuff like that because it's not a priority. So I remember one time we were just sitting around playing and coming up with ideas, and I get a call from my manager. I'm like, why are they calling me right now? I'll block this time off. And I had left something important on my work computer that I didn't bring with me, and they needed it or something like that. And I was like, oh man, in that moment, like, I had to get a friend to meet up with them and figure that out. But, like, in that moment, I was like, man, it almost feels like I'm chained to this, like, desk, and it kind of, like, encroaches on my musical, that portion of me and that portion of my time, and I just want to do away with it.
So y'all are both speaking directly into my next question, because as, like, a longtime listener of y'all, as a stand-up of y'all, really, a prevailing theme that circles around the victories and consequences of resilience. That's something that I take from, like, really your whole oeuvre. So you've been completely self-released this whole time. You've never had a label.
Nope.
You've never ran a super PR campaign up. Nothing of the sort. This is just y'all money, y'all team, y'all ingenuity, everything. And you've had jobs the entire time. So
the entire time.
What keeps y'all forging this path? And did you have any role models around to help y'all see this through?
You know what my favorite song is right now? Is that Moses Sumney joint, Cut Me? Because it describes it perfectly. I feel like it's he's saying in that song, like, it's, you kind of wear that resilience as a badge, like what you're able to endure. Like, we've like going from Lantern sitting in like the Five Guys by in Northeast, like when no one even knew who April VISTA was before we even had a name. We were like in there with like Notepad trying to figure out a rollout for that project. And what exactly, and the rollout kind of ended up being text all your friends and tell them to share.
Yep.
But that's the bro nigga rollout if I ever heard it. You hear me?
But
that's so true.
I think with every project, like we realized what we could do on our own there, and that kind of like feeds, fuels our drive to go further. Like we were able to do this, just us two. Let's see what we can do. Like, let's see what how much further we can go.
And then, like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh yeah, no, I'm about to start talking in circles. But, yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, and also like we throughout time we have angels that get sent into our life, our friends like you, who just come in and help us to help us with anything that we need, and that is a very important link. I feel like throughout this whole thing, like I've been trying to, because it does get very frustrating. It feels really alienating when you know that at the level that you want to be, how much help those people have around them, which is amazing. They worked hard and got there. But it's like, I have to, push this boulder up this hill, with less hands, and you kind of have to finesse your way and figure out how to do more with a little bit.
Right.
But this time period that we are, quarantined in the house and just forced to go inward, I think about how amazing it is that we have, like, even though it's small, like just a network of people that we know we can count on.
Yeah.
It's really, that's because sometimes the two of us will go crazy trying to come up with strategies and things alone.
And also, like, big shout out to James of
James
Other Fields, our manager Dennis. It's always it's since like you are here, or just
James
after
Shin.
James Shin, like literally like all of our homies have like really like pitched in to to really get us to where we are, and that's one thing I really appreciate too.
Yeah, there's a Rolodex of people, but we feel like confident though. Like there are times where I will be completely real, just a real moment. There are times where you do feel, or I do feel defeated. Like, oh my gosh, like how am I gonna get over this hump? Like I be calling Matt, like, and that's the one thing that we do well, is that we lean on each other when we need support, because I can't imagine like doing this solo dolo. We talk about this every time. Like, by myself. I know. Like it is a mind fuck to just sit there and like know how much work. Like there's so much work that goes into coming up with like a rollout or planning a tour. I remember when we were going on the Little Sims tour in Europe, me, Matt, and James, and Dennis, because Dennis helped us lay the whole foundation of that. And from jump, like we all had to plan this thing. And so James would be up at night with us, 11 p.m. plus. Okay, we're gonna get these Airbnbs. We're gonna do this. Like people have like tour managers and management companies, and we're doing this by hand. I know we got Google. We had this huge Google Sheet doc. Dennis helped us make the skeleton, and then James sat there and like filled everything out.
Yeah.
So like when the reason why when we tweet about this a lot, like if you follow us on Twitter and Instagram, which you should if you don't already, we talk about those things, but we think it's important that people know that. One, because a lot of artists follow us, and we want to keep people feeling encouraged, because like I said, it's a mindfuck when you're trying to do this with less support than others. And also to just like show people like what this really is. Like what are y'all even doing? Like, how are you doing this? We don't really have like a huge machine or anything. We want one. I'm not mad at if somebody say you want it.
The wildest part about this industry is like, no matter what facet of it you're in, you can, like to the metaphor you spoke of, like you can push the boulder up the hill with nobody to help you. Then it feels like you're down a couple fingers. You might have your fingers, but it's like you got to push the same boulder up with these two fingers. And it's taking forever to go up the hill. And the worst part is you see all these niggas who could help you watching you push the shit, waiting to see the time where they maybe can come help you out.
Yep.
That's the thing that we
so tough.
That's one thing that we noted, that we realized, and have like come to grips with. There are a lot of people, there are a lot of folks that are paying attention to what you're doing.
Just paying attention.
A lot of folks who who honestly could just lift you up that hill, but they're watching. Yeah, they're watching you push and like waiting for like a good time to like step in. And
that's fine.
At first you're like kind of blown, like, come on, please, like we need support. But one thing that I'm really grateful for throughout this whole experience is that we've learned so many like facets of the industry that go beyond just making the music.
Right.
So once we do get to like a certain point, we'll know exactly what's going on, no matter where we are, whether it's routing a tour or putting together like a PR campaign. I think that's important, and there by no means should you as an independent artist rush into a situation where you
have all this help.
Yeah, right. And you don't know what other people are doing.
Because it's great, like on the surface, like, yes, you do kind of like zoom to where you want to, to a high level or whatever level you want to call it. But I would rather go through this process of understanding every single person's job and every single person's function, because every single team player or stakeholder in your brand and your whoever you want to be as an artist, they're just a cogwheel. So you have to know what makes that cogwheel run, how much oil it needs, so that you don't put a cogwheel that's not functional thinking that it's going to do its job and it doesn't even fit. And I see that a lot of people may, like, whenever you hear horror stories from folks in the industry, is because they put an ineffective cogwheel in that little hole thinking that it was going to roll, and it didn't, and they don't know why, because why would I know accounting? Why would I know the function of a tour manager, or why would I know the function of a lawyer? And so, like, when you do, it requires a lot of reading, and it requires, is that me? It might be my hair.
Oh.
It requires a lot of reading, but at the end of the day, you start to understand each function, and you know when someone's bullshitting you, and you know when someone's working really well, so then you can give them a hug or something. I don't know.
not right now. No hugs right now. Don't do it now. Send somebody a text, like
an affirming point.
For real, yeah, like a salute. Send them a gif you need. Okay, so literally every answer y'all give goes into the next thing. So y'all know, like, as rich and beautiful as the history and the culture of the DMV is, as far as art, as far as music is, like, I see a couple folks in here. I see Tony Kill in here. I see my homie Misho Soul in here. Like, there's folks in the chat.
Misho is good, bro. Tony, what's up?
Yeah, folks are in the chat right now. Like, people that are just brilliant. And you also know that niggas hate hella hard, especially where we're from. Only particular sounds, only particular narratives are the ones that get fixated upon, and that's not a DMV specific problem. That's like, we can get into that. That's another podcast for real. But y'all have found a way to build your core using the internet and at home. You've sold out your own show with your name at the top of the bill. So
at home.
At the crib. At home. So
must say that.
So
I'm so proud of that.
As folks who have participated in the scene from the DIY level to like the industry level, do you experience the same sort of feeling of having to put the area on per se, or build the scene and stick around? Because I know people struggle with that a lot. Expect to like the first act from the area has to put everyone on. We do the Wale discussion a million times a month.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do y'all struggle with that sort of things from being where we're from? Got to put on?
I remember like some years ago, I was feeling the same way as like a bunch of artists who kind of thought that if you left the area, you were abandoning the scene, or you were, and then you kind of create this scene savior complex where you got to be the one to put it, to put on for everybody.
Right.
But I realized, like after we've been able to like leave for a little while and tour and travel to different places, I realized that for your creative growth as an artist, it's like incredibly healthy to like go somewhere else for a little while. And it's important for like your brand to expand, to to meet other folks, bring them back to the DMV. They're whenever we travel, whenever we perform, the first thing we say on stage is like we shout out where we're from. And I'd like to think that we're bringing more eyes to our scene, and so for any artist that's like in the area that's like considering moving somewhere, if you feel that like you need it to like fuel you creatively, or you need to meet those people there and you need to be there to meet them, then like absolutely do it. You don't need to feel a sort of guilt as long as you're good with your community. Because if you're good with your community, then they'll root you on. And like any of my homies who are musicians here in the DMV who want to move to LA, I'm like absolutely like go for that. Please, do whatever you have to do in order to like, find that next step that you're looking for.
That's right. And it helps you, it helps you to tweak your mindset a little bit also, because sometimes when you think too much about what's going on at home or get caught up inside of the pressures that come with making sure that you're an active artist at home and doing those kind of things, you kind of like don't brush shoulders with people who live different ways than you.
Right.
So I'm all for it. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, there's always going to be someone who's upset that you're not doing enough, or upset that I don't see you on posters all over the city, so you can't be successful or anything. There's always going to be somebody saying something like that. But there's so much. Like I said, that boulder analogy or metaphor rather. There's so much other stuff you need to be focusing on and make sure that the foundations of your career are solid and tight. That negativity like that has no place there. So moving somewhere else is only going to strengthen you if you're taking the right steps and setting yourself up to learn as much as you can and meet the people. And everyone says meet the right people for you. And I'm going to say that again, meet the right people for you. Find, and that takes a lot of sitting down while you are at home and thinking about, what are my weaknesses for real? Be self-aware. What am I not doing that I could do better, that I can't do with my own, expertise? I need someone to bring in. And then when you set out and you go somewhere else, it is to find somewhere like that. For example, like in the DMV, we have a very there aren't that many people who operate at a managerial level. So much talent, not a whole lot of people in that rung. So if you move somewhere else and you need a really good manager somewhere else, or a really good someone to guide you inside of your genre that the DMV may not have, you take that and you identify that and then make that a goal for you. Moving somewhere is not going to mean that the light switch turns on and you're on. Moving somewhere means now you're at the back of the race and you got to run up. So what do you need to focus on when you stretch?
Exactly. Now it's flex time. Let me brag on y'all right quick.
I have no muscles. This is so sad. I've been eating fried chicken.
Quarantine.
Never got the do-rag out.
Quarantine. Good combo. Good combo live. We have April and Vista right now. Matt, I heard you need some milk. Fuck out of here. Okay, so look, let me brag on y'all right quick. So y'all have shared records and stages with so many types of folks. You've done Little Sims. You were about to go on tour with Lil Dragon, but then the Rona fucked it up. But you've got much love from Lil Dragon. You've done festivals. You've worked with a certain someone. You've been international. You've been on the radio. You've been on Colors with 1 million views. You were on YouTube's Instagram. You were on YouTube's Instagram.
You were. That was crazy.
Oh yeah, that did happen.
That was so crazy. Cool. People thought we were fusing in the picture.
Yeah, for real.
I thought that was so dope.
Not to mention that you have found ways to get the internal support from playlisting and things of that nature that's helped y'all exposure as well. Mm-hmm. So greatly. To many from the outside, it's like they're looking like, shit, this is a buzz act. Like, holy fuck, like y'all are like next to blow, whatever, what have you. So I just want to ask, and a lot of this conversation has done this already, but what are some of the industry myths that you would like to destabilize for other people that gain inspiration from your successes?
I think folks need to know just how much work goes into these successes, and it's not just a matter of hitting lit. Because I think that's
really
that's one big fallacy for upcoming artists or observers who are kind of watching us grow.
Mm-hmm.
They see we've achieved this, or we've gotten on this tour, or we got on the radio.
So they're like, what other lick can you get now?
Yeah. In between these, it's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of sending emails. They're sending emails to folks who aren't responding. There's so much of that, meetings that end up going nowhere. And yeah, at this, there's no easy part to any of it.
I think the key to, there's no key because honestly, we're still learning. So it's not like I'm teaching you the ways. I'm just learning, giving you my experience. But I feel like one of the things that I found that has helped us stay stable is, like I said before, learning all of those different facets of the industry. You don't have to be an expert at each one, but just knowing the foundations. Because you know when to strike and when not to strike. You know, and you also don't get so blown when things don't go your way. Matt's smiling. I don't know why.
Oh, I saw Eugene said headphone solidarity.
Oh,
Audio Technica boys.
That is so far up in the chat. Scroll down.
Man, that threw me off. I was like, "Is you laughing at me?"
I'm like RZA. I'm like RZA on the beat battle. He ain't no idea.
Right.
So bong.
But yeah, someone a long time ago told me that you're gonna take a lot of L's. And you're going to have to learn how to roll with those L's. And some of them are going to be uppercase L's. And it's going to be an ego blower. And it's going to make you feel really low. And if somebody like me, I struggle with anxiety and depression. So when things don't add up, and I'm very particular about, knowing things and keeping my hands in the pot. So when, we reach out to someone and it doesn't go our way, or we have promos set up, and again, we're not working with a PR agency, so people, may or may not want to write about you because you're not a PR agency, you're the artist. Mm-hmm. And there's a stigma in the industry that needs to, I think, go away, but we can talk about that later. But when those things don't go away, it makes you feel like, oh, again, what am I doing wrong? How am I going to get through this? And I feel like what's been keeping me stable is just continuing to learn and just rolling with it. For example, when we put out Every Void, we did not have a major machine behind us. And I didn't know what was going to happen. Matt didn't know what was going to happen. And we've learned so much from that experience of how to do better next time, or figure out, where our strength. We figured out where our strengths and weaknesses were at that point. So now we know exactly how to regroup, and it's because we just kept learning. Sometimes when you feel really low, maybe that just means you need to just pick up an article and just read about something that may rekindle your interest in the music business again, so that you don't feel so defeated on one thing. It's kind of like practicing. When I practice my instrument, when I do practice, if I keep trying to play a lick and it's just not working out and I can't get my hands fast enough, I don't stay on that. I move to something else that I know, or I try to learn something different, and like learn a new scale, and then it releases my tension and it helps me to feel more connected. So it's like the same type deal. It's almost like the music. I don't know if that made a real connection to what you.
No, I actually forgot the question. I feel like I ain't answered the Joan at all.
No, he's talking about like things that like industry things you've learned.
Oh, they like
on that side.
Got it. Okay.
Like things that you could give to someone else. I hope that makes sense.
You answered it for sure.
Asking questions.
You answered that, and it's like on top of that, you answered like part of the next question. Where I was going to ask y'all, what are some of the best lessons that you have learned from the worst L's you've ever taken?
Oh man, hold on. Let me think. The best lessons from the worst L's.
While y'all think about that, I want to point everybody to the bottom button. Buy April VISTA shit right now.
Buy it.
Buy it. I put the Bandcamp there, April VISTA. You can look it up everywhere, all streaming platforms, all social media. It's on Bandcamp. I put Bandcamp right there because niggas always niggas always ask, how do I help artists? People are stuck in this. They're stuck in this mindset that like listening on Spotify and paying the landlord or paying whoever you stream through is getting the artist support. Buying the music, especially now when no one can tour, people can't get things produced. That's how you help buy the music down there.
Right. And wouldn't you like, if your streaming service one day went offline because, I don't know, it's the apocalypse, wouldn't you want to be able to still listen to your music? I'm going to leave it there.
Concept.
I'm going to leave it foil cap. Matt, do you have the L?
Oh no, I'm thinking of a lot of L's.
Best lessons. You don't gotta think of every L.
That makes a W.
Face ass. Embarrassed.
I will. You go first, April. I gotta think.
Here's an L. That we learned. So when we were recording "You Are Here," there was it was an unfortunate incident where we were working with our engineer, and his car got broken into, and his hard drives were stolen. And on that hard drive was a lot of the stems that we had just recorded the night before, and we didn't copy over those stems to our hard drives. So those stems for those songs are no longer exist. They're gone. And that was like a huge blow to our production schedule, because we make a Gantt chart. We have everything charted out of how we're going to finish a project. And it kicked us off because we were like, now what are we going to do about mixing? And it was really, really stressful. We're like, what are we going to do for licensing if someone reaches out and says, I want this song? And now you can't send them a song with no lyrics. You can't send them an instrumental because you don't have the stems anymore. That was a huge blow. And we've learned to not only copy. Matt has like 4 hard drives now, so we copy.
Back up your work, man.
You back up your work. And every time you work with an engineer, no matter if it's someone you trust, like in our example, is a dear friend of ours, or somebody you never met until then, you always copy things over yourself, because you don't want to have one person holding all of the eggs in the basket. You want to make sure, and like everybody knows that, but like sometimes when you're working, especially when you have a casual working relationship, sometimes you like let things slide, and then you don't think about it, but you have to be very rigid and make sure that you keep backups of everything that you do. Also, on the licensing tip, for any up and coming artists, that how am I going to get money to pay for my stuff? Licensing is a great way to get money to survive off of and continue to grow. So make sure that you have, if you're a rapper, make sure you have files that are what do you call it? Clean files. Make sure you have a well mixed regular file, and make sure you have an instrumental, all of your work. So whenever someone knocks on the door and says, "Hey, I want to use this in a TV show or a commercial or a movie," you can give them those readily. They don't have time to wait. So I kind of want to change it because I thought about it. I was like, well, people might want to know that. Matt, you got ill?
I would say that never be so married to a plan or an idea for how you expect things to occur.
Mm-hmm.
Because you never know what's going to happen in the world, with your rollout, with your songs. I feel like you should always be malleable and like able to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Because there have been so many situations where we put all of our eggs in one basket, and it didn't go quite as planned. And we were like really, really disappointed by it. Disappointed by like the success of like a release or something like that. You just have to just continue rolling with the punches and just keep your head down and move forward regardless. Like just close your eyes and walk forward. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And also, just I'm thinking of like things that are related to like L's that we've taken, but at this point, I don't like anything that doesn't go quite as planned because we kind of just keep our head down and just keep moving regardless. I don't really think about it. I just adapt as things come along.
Well, that goes to the situation that we're dealing with now, because by the plan that we had, like, don't get it twisted, we still have sheets. We have like Google Sheets that we keep. And we didn't make a Gantt chart for this project, but we haven't started mixing yet. But we normally have like a Gantt chart helping us stay on task and stay on a very rough schedule. Like this song needs to be mixed by this date so we can get on to the next one. So we do that to keep, on time or not lag. But if something happens, like pandemic breaks out or something like that, not being married to your plan makes it less devastating. And then you can kind of like, well, I was planning on being malleable anyway, so I don't feel as stuck. And always have a contingency plan for when things like this happen, too.
Mm-hmm. Yo, Matt, when you answered as well, I was just kind of like, you talk about malleability and being flexible. All I thought was like the Rick Ross shit. I see how these niggas out here playing, but I could adapt. You hear me,
bro? So many like keys and lessons in music that we like take to heart come solely from like rap lines. We just repeat them to ourselves like mantras.
I know.
Just to get through it. Y'all also dealt with a lot of like people stealing swag. You dealt with people kind of copying shit. You just went through your song ending up on a game album randomly. You've had
it's a compliment.
Oh my goodness.
You've had random independent folks like sampling your voice on some other shit from a person who passed away. There's all kind of weird shit's happened. Like, how have y'all weathered that? Yeah, really twisted.
Twisted story. So, I honestly, Matt has to help me because sometimes I get really upset. Like, because we've had like too many, like, I feel like one is too much, but quite a few instances where music has been ripped or stolen. Like, I now have like PTSD. So like, even if someone just wants to make a remix or something, that kind of like hair like stands up on the back of my neck, and I'm like, wait a minute, what are you doing? What are you doing with my song? Because I'm like, scared of what is happening there. And so I've learned to ease up on that. Like, if someone, makes a remix or something, I'm not about to cry about it. But we've had major copyright infringement stuff going on, especially when the game. That's a wild story because we wouldn't have known every day. Like I check on Twitter, and this might make me look lame now, but I do this to stay in the loop. But I check on Twitter, like I look at who's talking about April VISTA, just so I'll know like are there conversations happening, like if there's songs that people like that I should know about. And a fan thought that the sample on the game song, we cleared it, and I was like, wait a minute, we didn't clear it, and I retweeted it, and it went crazy. And that's another L that you don't even think it's going to ever happen to you, and it does, because now you're like, wow, now I have to defend myself, and now it's against a massive artist, and I don't know if I should. And that was a lesson that we learned. Yes, you should stand up for yourself and be bold about what you think that you're worth, and be bold about taking yourself seriously, even when someone thinks you're small and they'll never see this or no one's going to care. Like, you stand up for yourself, and you fight to be credited properly, and you fight to make sure that you are recognized, because no matter how small of an artist you are, like, you deserve that. You deserve to be treated like the Beyonce or something like that. Like, you deserve to be respect is respect. So yeah, we're I hope no one tries to do that again, but if you do, you're gonna respect me. That's all I'm gonna say.
Like that. That's the classy answer. Like that.
I'll try to be diplomatic.
Like, if you do, well,
blow your shit up. No, I was playing.
Okay, so I got a couple more questions here. We still got about 20-some people going strong with us. You were April right now on Good Convo, in case y'all ain't know that. You got a couple fan questions, too. Let me tap in here right quick.
Yeah, ask questions, folks. I see a couple, too.
Somebody asked y'all what y'all full-time jobs were. I'm not about to ask y'all that.
No, I ain't going to expose us.
Yeah, nah, there's got to be some separation going there.
Just know I'll be at a desk sometime. It's not no more, though.
Okay, this is a really good one. So, do y'all feel more creative or more challenged to be creative during this crisis?
For me, like, as I was saying, like, and not really, like, it was hard with the whole mic thing situation earlier. But, I was saying that it's when it first started and, I couldn't go back to work. I was stuck at home. I was, like, totally, like, engulfed in, this CNN news cycle, and it was just nothing but dread. I couldn't think creatively. Everything kind of sounded like static, when I turned on music. So after a couple of weeks of that, I kind of settled in and, realized that, I've got to, one, distract myself from all like this dreadful news, this breaking news and headlines. But, music has always kind of been, an escape. So I should, return to that. In the past, like, week or so, couple of weeks, I've been, I've been super creative now, just thinking about that. Mm-hmm. And also one thing that's been helping me out is checking in on folks. A lot of my homies who are artists, I ask them, how they're doing in this time. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of them going through the same thing and then trying to, break out of their like dread-induced block as well. Mm-hmm. And being able to talk that through with other creatives have like inspired me to like, get back to it, get back on the horse, not rush, not, give myself the timeline for anything, but just create things for fun, see what comes from it. And, just ride it out like that.
Yeah.
So I've been pretty like creative as of recent, so I hope it continues.
Yeah, and I feel like I've had to like tune out of, because I can get really obsessed about industry conversations, because I always try to stay in the know about trends, especially now. Like, you kind of want to know like what's happening with booking, what's going on here, what's happening with publications, what's happening, because that affects you. But I've had to tune out because just a lot of people who aren't musicians don't understand like how much creating takes out of you, and how much of a it's a very giving process. It takes all of your energy, and it takes a lot of, it's a very like holistically like a mind, body, soul experience. So they're like trying to pressure people. You need to be making hits. You need to be making the best music of your life. You need to be doing all this stuff, and it can feel. I struggle with anxiety. I know a lot of people do too. It feels so overwhelming to feel like I need to be making the greatest music of all time. So when they open up everything, I'm going to have the best album, or I'm going to put out the best album during this time. Like I've been trying to stay out of those conversations, stay out of that loop, and work on peace so that I can create from a genuine place and not feel so drained and not feel pressured to have to come up with like the next hit of all hits or the next my opus or whatever. It's been a struggle. I honestly have been struggling with staying very positive. Pretty sure everybody has. So a lot of mindfulness goes into a lot of mindfulness exercises.
Okay, in the home stretch here, returning to the music for a second, and I'll go back into the fan question because there's something that connects to this. There's a vulnerability that fuels the engine for how y'all pull y'all emotions out, and especially emotions that come with just surviving every day. And there's also a very deep urge to just continue trying. So where do y'all reach from to ensure that you articulate these feelings in a way that's authentic to yourselves and in a way that will translate to other people?
This is that question that's like on the last 3 questions on Hot Ones where it's the really spicy wing.
I know.
I'm about to order some wings after, food. Don't even play with me, bro.
I love chicken wings.
Order it.
But you're asking how we kind of channel that vulnerability or how we pull that out to create.
How do y'all make y'all feelings? How do y'all pull y'all feelings out to create? And when you're done with your creation, how do you make sure it's accurate and how do you make sure it translates to other people, that it makes sense?
Yeah. So, I don't know, man. It's pretty organic with us. We don't really. It's kind of like the only way that we know how to make music together. Create it sincerely. Wherever we're coming from, and whatever comes out is how we were feeling at that time. Mm-hmm. But say for this, just after You Are Here, with different life stresses and also a bit of pressure after putting that project out, we were kind of lost on where to go next. Mm-hmm. And that created a lot of anxiety with us, and we channeled that by kind of warping that anxiety into something creative. Whenever I'm stressed, I can't really think about music. It doesn't really sound like much to me, and it leads me to just making really shitty, crazy, fucked up sounds, and then walking away, and then
or it starts to sound like static, right?
Yeah, it's music doesn't really sound like music. But I think with this next thing that we've been working on, I was able to, in at least sonically, kind of turn that static into something I can charge and make a song out of. I think that's where a lot of the the elements sonically come from. That anxiety and stress of how do I make something again? Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is a lot of it goes back to that stress wave ethos.
I was just thinking that.
We kind of pushed this out in a cathartic manner. A lot of anger and frustration. We really put it into our music. And it's kind of surprising because it ends up at the end not really sounding wildly dark.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Every Void is the first song that we wrote that really we felt like it was you really went there. Like, we've always been stressed out. That's so sad to say. We've always been stressed out and making music and trying to release it, but it always came out like, very like light and airy feeling, and
I know.
very, very pretty sounding. So we were like, how can we make this dirty? Because that's how we feel in the dark.
In the dark.
So, and Every Void was the first thing that came out. That's why it means so much to us, because it was like, that came from, I was having a lot of stress dreams. So was Matt. And, the lyrics came from like a involuntary lucid dream that I had that scared the crap out of me, and then wrote about it too. And I realized it was coming out. All of that stuff was coming out.
Did that bleed into the video at all? Like the creative direction for that? Somebody asked that.
Yeah.
Shout out to Taylor Thompson.
Yeah, shout out to Taylor Thompson.
One time.
And Kuba for doing amazing cinematography. It did. Because we told Taylor initially, where we were at the time, which is what we just discussed. And that's where the idea of the hands came into place, because we were trying to come up with a way to show the feeling of being suffocated and feeling claustrophobic. And and hands just ended up being like the main symbol to show like it has a level of intimacy and also a level of like total like what do I want to say, like interjection, like someone just like control. Something is just like controlling your space. Right. Something else is invading your space. Something out there is crowding your space. So when I'm on the bed and the hands come in, or when we're in the car and the hands take over Matt when he's in the car. I think that was like the main visual element. Yeah,
it's really like those hands kind of like represent like pressure and expectations and people trying to pull you in different ways, which goes back to like this idea that the black artists and the boxes that the industry will put you in or other people put you in. With
everybody wants you to be
full circle.
Like, you're like Badu, you're like this, you're like that.
Like, interesting.
I wish I had one.
I got one. No.
I got three.
Backups. Yep. But it's like I think that's definitely where Every Void came from, and a lot of the songs that are going to follow that are like come from like this resistance to expectations that people have on us, or kind of like an anarchic type of resistance, like fuck these systems, I don't want to do this, I want to do this, in fact I'm gonna do some things just to make you mad. And kind of when you're really like frustrated, you're stressed out like at your job, you kind of do things to antagonize. And
he's like, nigga, I'm on my job right now. What are you talking about? Hey.
Oh yeah. Not Bottom Police. We love you guys.
Like who?
But if you're at a job you hate, you kind of you're at home and you kind of feel like bottled up or like a caged animal. And I think a lot of the ideas came from like this rage that you don't know where to put, and like this.
Everyone can relate to that.
You just want to slap somebody and you can't.
Oh my god!
Piece somebody up.
Basically.
Through the music.
I also wanted to throw out there that the meanings of the songs change over time too.
Oh, of course.
Especially, for us, like, for example, I'll tell you a song that changed meanings when we were writing Hot Coffee Freestyle. That song came from my observations of friends who were trying to get out of really bad situations. And it was like me trying to tell them, do you know that you are better off than you think you are? And it's almost like urging that person to have gratitude about where they are to keep them going and not feeling like they're so crushed. And now when I listen to that, it's a word to myself to be grateful. It's a word to myself, and I did not write it to be that way initially, but now it is. Like I remember when we were on tour, and I had to talk about what that song was. I tried to sometimes, and that was the story that I gave, because it's like, you know, it has now morphed into something even more personal and internal. Even the songs we're writing now have changed meaning, because we wrote a lot of songs last year. Now they're like changing and morphing into something different. I was listening to one song we wrote about, or we were writing now, and I was like, oh man, like this sounds like, now I'm talking about, you know, what's happening, you know, now that we're living through, and I didn't even know this was going to happen.
Yeah, I always say, like, your lyrics, when I really tap into them, it's like you're just consistently dragging me, but lovingly. Like, the songwriting is just like, nigga, don't you know that most souls will kill for what you own? Like,
gingerly.
Oh, that's true.
Then it's like, you say that's in 5.
I know, it's a hard one.
Okay, but I'm gonna tell you now, like, that's their video treatment. There's the video treatment. There it is.
Me dragging someone.
You gotta beat a nigga ass on camera.
I mean, but I feel like I wrote that to help myself and to help, you know, the people, you know, that are close to me listening to it also. And even, you know, and it ended up blowing. I remember one time I was just on Instagram randomly, and someone sent us a DM speaking about how that song got them through deaths in their family and things like that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, for example, like the last song, Until, I wrote that after I found out my grandmother was terminally ill, and I was watching her die. And so that, and they picked that, and I don't explicitly say that, but that person picked that song and said, is that what that's about? Because that's what's helping me go through this. And it was like, whoa. You know, I don't know if people were going to connect with that or figure that out. And I tried, like, when we found out we could go on Rap Genius and, like, just write out everything, I wanted to do that because I wanted to give people more context of what it means, and let them know. And I didn't know if it was going to connect, really, or I didn't want to mess it up for somebody. Like, somebody thought FOMO was about Jesus. And I was like, well, it's not, but, you know.
Like, but take it up with you and your God.
It's like going to the museum, and you know the artist statement. I try to give an artist statement, but everyone picks out what they want. But I didn't know if my intentions and where I was personally was going to connect, and it does.
Word. How do y'all elevate this music live? That was another thing somebody asked. Ooh. Like, what makes y'all morph it? What life does this music take on when y'all are able to just fuck with it, tweak it?
Oh yeah, it's tough, man. Because we want to do so. You know, the songs have so many like dimensions, and we want to do so much with it. We've always got these like really grand ideas for what to do live, but we just don't have the resources to do. So we got to finesse it in our own like broke, clever way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, say it again.
But you know, our favorite concerts are our favorite artists are the ones who can like take their songs to a different place live and do something different with it. You know, instead of just performing it straight up, you know, give it some sort of live rendition that you can only experience on, you know, when you go to a show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we try to take into like the creation of like the live set.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you know, we expand parts of songs. We try to figure out what are we gonna play with our instruments, what's gonna be programmed. We have an expanded set whenever we perform with our drummer Foots. Shout outs to Foots.
Shout out to Foots, the king.
Shout out to Foots and Cole, the GOAT, bro. Go legend right there. But yeah. So that's pretty much what we do. It's really stressful though.
Yeah, because we have to like break it down and try to make it so that when you hear it live, you feel encompassed. And it's hard because for the past tours that we've done, have been the opening act, the supporting act. So we don't have the money to bring our own board and our own sound guy. So we have to finesse and try to figure out a way to get it mixed for live, and Matt arranges it beautifully so that when you listen to it in the audience, it still feels all-encompassing, and we have some kind of control over how it translates. We're working on doing a little bit more this time because we really want the music that we're working on now needs that. You need to be. It's like a 5D experience.
It's a fun fact. Like our live set for like the past couple of tours, that's when we really started to really like dive into where'd April go? All right,
I have to check my battery. Like, why does it do that? I had to check my battery life.
I think it was for like after the Golden tour, and I think maybe when we first did like the first few like 6-date run with Little Dragon a couple years ago, we were trying to figure out how to expand this to make it seem like a really like grand and like professional set rather than us just performing the songs. Mm-hmm. And that was the time when Kendrick was headlining Coachella after for Damn.
Yeah.
And I watched his set like 3 or 4 times, like from start to finish, trying to figure out how he was sequencing between songs, right? And what I really loved was in between songs, instead of like him just like stopping and talking and be like, yeah, this is my next track, there'd be like silence, and you'd hear like, ain't nobody praying for me, ain't nobody praying for me, ain't nobody praying for me,
ain't nobody praying for me, ain't nobody praying for me, ain't nobody praying for me.
So that ambience that kept you in the world, he didn't break the fourth wall while on stage. I thought that was like brilliant. And so what we try to do is like in between songs, we create ambience with different like sound swirling and textures that we would use in our song, and we like break elements out of our song to just to play just under us talking, or even Esperanza Spalding when she did that the D Plus Evolution. I don't know how to pronounce that album.
I think it is Emily's D Plus Evolution.
I went to see her at 9:30 Club, and the whole thing's like she never broke character. It was like a play, from start to finish. Like, and I think one thing that we learned from watching other like big acts or like our favorite acts, is that they're able to like maintain the world that they've created in their music. Mm-hmm. From like the beginning of their set to the end of their set. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that we're still like working to build out, totally like keep, we're trying to stay in the world.
Mm-hmm. I think we achieve it, even with the set of limitations that we do have. We achieve that, I think, really well with it just being 2 of us on stage, because a lot of times, even acts that are alone, like your James Blakes or whatever, like they have, whenever they tour, they have like a drummer and someone else supporting their synths, and we don't always have that all the time. So it has to be the fullest sound we can get from 2 people.
And we don't have lights either.
We don't have lights.
Another thing about being an open act, lights, ain't no lights. Just a crumble lights.
Not lights, man.
Ain't no lights.
So you have to make it engaging, and I think that's a challenge. Bro. Yeah.
No, the funniest thing we did, like, we did the Little Sims tour in Europe, and we didn't have a light tech. But halfway through, we realized that we didn't want to walk on stage and plug our stuff in while the whole crowd's looking at us with the lights on, and then everyone see us give a thumbs up.
I know we have to do that because they don't be looking at you.
So what we had to do, what we started doing halfway through the tour, James, our manager at the time, we were like, James, stand beside whoever's got beside the light switch and tell them to turn the lights off. So we walk on stage, set our stuff up.
In the dark,
and then once
it's already set up, but we, check everything.
Check everything.
Don't say that, because they're gonna be like, "Oh, you just putting stuff on." No, well, y'all doing that wrong.
The bass in, plug the violin in, that stuff. and then the moment I press play, that's the cue to turn the light on.
Back on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like funny things that we try to do now to get as close to like, you know, not breaking the fourth wall with folks, even though we're like, you know, the small time opener.
Mm-hmm.
So
sometimes it works out in our favor though. One time we were playing, this is actually on tape on YouTube, because people will go to your concerts, they like it, they're gonna get to recording. So there is evidence of this. We were at elsewhere like a couple years ago with the Little Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget what song it is though. It's on YouTube. And we're playing, and the lights kicked out in the entire place right before the beat dropped on accident. The whole place went dark, black. And then when the beat dropped, the lights came on. Everybody thought that it was supposed to be. They were like, "Ooh!" You could hear like people taking the video, like, "Ooh!" Like, and then you know, like stuff like that. I don't know why we just luck out, but stuff like that always happens, or something like that happens. Or you know, we have to talk to them in advance, like, "Can you keep the lights off at this point?" And then when they actually listen to you and do what you ask, or if something freak accident like that happens, and then like it becomes a light show and you didn't even know it was about to be like that. Crazy. I remember when we had our first solo show in DC at Union Stage, we did not have a lighting tech. So our good friend Kevin came through. We didn't even, I don't think we asked him to do it. I think he just did it off bucks, because Union Stage didn't think that we were going to sell as many tickets. So they had one guy on staff. And when we sold out and it was all these people there, he was like, "I can't run sound and the lights and do this."
Like, who's fucking fault is that?
Right. And so Kevin stepped in and he did the lights. And when y'all look back on video, because I blacked out the whole night, it was the best night ever. It was the first time we played our songs and everyone knew the words. Our family was there. Our friends were there. It was amazing. And when I look back at the picture and the video, I was like, "Oh my gosh, we had this like beautiful light show and all that kind of stuff." I don't know what it is. We blessed or something, but we always luck out on that end of the production. And hopefully going forward, we'll be able to get like actual lights and animations and stuff to play, because that's going to be fun.
And yet again, your answer parlays into exactly what I wanted to ask y'all, because I wanted to ask y'all about light, and not just a physical light, but we talking about the metaphysical, lyrical, spiritual, miracle, goddamn light, nigga. That type of light. The inner light. The common, there is a light. You feel me? So, you know, I had to set that shit up. Maybe it's the polo. Regardless. So, I literally wrote down, April VISTA is a work of love and the light love can bring.
Wow.
But there's also light in keeping up the fight. So with everything that's threatening y'all up, whether it's the world, whether it's the industry, et cetera, whether it's your own mind, what keeps you loving and what keeps you fighting? Last question.
Who wants to go first? You want to go first, Matt, or you got?
I can go first. I don't know how far I could have gotten had I not met April for real. Because the way that we bounce bounce off each other.
That would be mine.
Quarantine.
But like, I honestly, when we did lanterns, and you know, we wrote the intro to that with the violin, and I composed it on a plug-in and everything, and then April's like. No, I'm like, all right, yeah, bet. So this joint done.
We're done.
Done. I got the native instruments plug in. Boom. April's like, or we could actually go to a studio and I play violin. And I was like, wait, you could do that?
Yeah, we got it like that.
That's the thing.
We got it like that.
Boom. So that was like my first studio experience from there. You know what I mean? So. Ever since that moment, I figured like there's really nothing that we can't do, as long as you can, as long as you can, find even one example of a person doing it, then you can do it.
Be done.
And if you haven't found an example of it, then try your best to be the first. And I think with everything that we do, I really take a lot of pride in like pushing that boulder and accepting that challenge. So I think my light is having somebody to push me further, and me having somebody push further, it really adds more purpose to this whole journey.
You took my answer.
Bow.
Yeah, well, I'll come up with another one because I feel the same way. Well, Matt put that way more eloquently than I would have. But I also find that whenever I feel like I'm sinking into a dark place, my family and my faith keeps me going towards the light. And also, like my adopted family, the folks that we named earlier, and my friends, like if you know me, if I'm close enough to you, I've texted you or called you, or we talked about how to helping me get through a tough situation, or helping me figure out where my confidence lies when it gets low. Like, I'm learning throughout this entire pandemic episode that's going on in the world that you really need to keep the people who you're close with really close, and make sure you let them know that they keep you going, because that's how you keep that light connected, and you keep that will to move forward. You stay connected to that. There's no this is a crazy business, and it can be so discouraging sometimes. And the wins sometimes don't even feel like wins because you feel like you have more to accomplish, or that was cool, but I gotta get to this place. So it's all about like feeling validated in that choice that you made to continue to be an artist and go against the grain in that type of way. And those people, like Matt said, like having Matt there to talk me down off the edge when I'm like, I can't do this, I can't take this anymore. That is such an important light source. I have learned to pray. That's something I talk to Jane about all the time. We both are really, really trying to work on that, trying to keep our spiritual self fed during this time and beyond, because you need to have some type of, whatever your faith is, you need to keep that going, because that's going to keep you grounded, that's going to keep you level-headed, and keep you from wanting to walk away from it all. So it's the light really is just the people around me. And Matt, he already took my...
I did that. I knew you were going to say something like that. Like, let me steal her and flip it on.
I mean, because we have our same, we share the light source. That's fine.
Y'all share the light, y'all share the fight. That is what it is. So, well, I'm nourished, and
Aww.
I wish we could do this in real life, but we just did it in real life. We just looking at each other on the screen. Fuck you talking about. But yeah, look, PG County's in the building, Virginia's in the building, Maryland's in the building, Friendly High School's in the building.
I get the two up?
Friendly's finest.
Friendly's finest. Fuck is you talking about, nigga? This is Good Convo number 11 in collaboration with Lost Sounds Radio. Good Convo live, courtesy of the good folks at Vinyl Me Please. I am Michael Penn II, a.k.a. Crash Prez, rapper with the podcast. So many keys, Maya. Invoice boys in the fucking building. You feel me? It's like that. Please support April and Vista. I mean, just to wrap shit up. Like, I was talking to Yo. I talk to Yo like every day, every other day at least, and he was talking about how the industry's gonna change, right? In the midst of this shit, how it might collapse. But we were just talking about how folks who are in situations in this industry that were just starting to take off, it's like so many artists are about to start getting to a different place and they got fucked up. But there's also the struggle to get seen, right? And he said, yo, like, Matt and April are like, one of the most no-brainer groups I've probably ever encountered. I don't understand like what it is about this game. Like that makes perfect sense. You don't need to fix anything. Like I go up for y'all. Like y'all know that shit, but I go up for y'all no matter what it is.
For it.
And it's just, this is family to me. I've wanted to cry half this conversation. It's probably just because of general depression, because of isolation. Regardless, it's a blend.
It's a blend.
Yeah, shout out to y'all. Thank y'all for finally coming on this space and just giving y'all game. I'm sure so many folks who look up to y'all are going to tap in with this shit when it goes live and get the keys, you know. Thank you for being
People
generous.
We look up to. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Shout out everyone who was here from minute 1. We done gone for an hour 40 now. Appreciate
oh my gosh,
y'all.
are people still logged? What
I
We
know,
still got 21 people in here. 21.
Wow. Did we miss any questions or anything before we wrap? I think we're good.
I think we were definitely good. We're more than good.
Okay. We love all of you.
There's some folks in here from the UK
my
too.
mom's on there. Love you, Mom.
Thank you, Kikoa, Eugene, Dennis, Maya, Tira. That's my cousin.
Yes.
Chanji.
Our family's in there.
Shout out to Dennis. Shout out my homie Max Rubin in the building.
Yes. So the Dennis. Dennis is on. Oh my gosh,
Steve.
in Amsterdam. Oh, Keely's on here. She said, "Have you ever been to Uvu Jobber?" You already know the answer to that. No, I never went there. I never went to Uvu Jobber.
That shit was feature length. That was a feature length movie, viral. Bow.
Yes, man. Dennis is still up. It's like probably like 3 a.m. in Amsterdam.
That's the next Drake song.
3 a.m. in Amsterdam.
I'm waiting for Cardi to drop. I hope Cardi drop. Look, Matt, you better put the do-rag on now.
All right, man. We gotta let
nah, bro. This show's over. I gotta let the waves cook some more.
You gotta let them bake.
I gotta let them bake.
I gotta pick my shit out now. I got out the shower and I can't even pick my shit.
Let marinate.
Y'all are irritating.
Y'all violated me. I thought we were all gonna be athleisure
Matt,
today.
you like Pinky in the brain right now.
Both of them.
Look, beat the tide. Oh my god.
Get this man off the line. But yeah, listen, follow us on Instagram at April VISTA. Matt, can you type that in there? Because I can't do it because I'm not on the thing. But follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter to stay connected for any updates that we have, tour updates, music updates, whatever. And just if you want to talk more.
If you have more questions, feel free to send more our way.
Yeah, we might do a Q&A after that too with people on Instagram. That would be a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Buy that music, y'all. Buy that music.
And buy the music so that we can do more things.
Simple. Period. All right. I love y'all. I love y'all dearly.
Right,
we love you too.
See y'all back in the group chat.
Bye.
This is Good Convo. Appreciate y'all. Crowdcast. Fuck with y'all. Shout out for rocking with us. Peace, y'all.
This has been the Good Convo podcast, as brought to you by Vinyl Me Please. Host and executive producer Michael Penn II, a.k.a. Crash Prez. Executive producer Amelia Sutliff. Recording and post-production by Jonah Graber. Original theme song produced by Knows the Time. Store if I tried, tell him store if I'm focused, man. And it's still invoice boys word count. Click to the check drop. Period.